Flip lessons in 15 minutes, take five. Hello everyone, Happy New Year and welcome to my presentation on flip lessons in 15 minutes. Just to clear things up, lessons will last the usual amount of time. It'll probably take more than 15 minutes to set up one of these flip lessons, and that's the voice of experience talking, and there's every chance that this presentation will last a lot longer than 15 minutes, but we'll worry about that when it happens. So what's the big idea? Well, the whole principle of flip lessons has been explained extremely well by my colleagues at other times, and I'm not going to bother you with that now. What I have, however, got up here is a definition that I found online, and if you can't read that right now, well, don't worry, because this is published online and you'll be able to come back, look at this video, pause that and follow the link, which is one of the great things about flip lessons. The other thing, I suppose, is that this whole presentation is not about flip lessons generally, although I do talk a little bit about the principle behind it. Rather, this is just one particular way to deal with flip lessons, and it's certainly not a magic bullet. It's certainly not something that's going to solve every single problem you've got. I mean, that's kind of beyond my remit. I'm just a teacher. But hopefully it's going to give you a few things to think about and maybe some techniques to embrace when you go back to the classroom. And this brings me to a principal idea, the sort of underlying thesis behind all of this, and this is FOAL, and I'm not normally a huge fan of these trendy acronyms. What this means is it's facilitating the learning experience, and it comes from this guy. He's a chap called Philip Hughes. He teaches a lot of American politics, and I use his videos an awful lot. He's extremely good. The kids hate him, and that's generally quite a good thing because you're much more likely to engage with something that hits you on a visceral level. And besides, I force them to watch him, so he hasn't really got. They don't really have much of a choice, like him or not. I really don't care. Anyway, we're talking about facilitating the learning experience, and critical to that is answering this particular question: where does learning happen? And here we have a number of learning environments, if you will, at Stowe. And my question is quite simply, where does learning happen? And obviously it's a trick question, otherwise I wouldn't have mentioned it. The learning happens in exactly the same place. Not the Sistine Chapel, but rather inside the head of the student, inside the brain of the student. That's where all of the learning happens. And we can see here that there's a lot of different learning environments that we use at Stowe. But if we put foremost that idea that learning happens inside the head, then we see our role as teachers as being a facilitating of the learning experience, and that FOAL, horrible acronym, comes into play. But what that does, it allows us to approach the flip lessons from a slightly different perspective. And this is the big idea, really. And it's about really the content. There's still an awful lot of content that we have to deliver, and yeah, there it goes. And traditionally there are two ways they can do this. They can either go off and read a book or read an article, or we can stand in front of them and deliver this information in the old style chalk and talk. And I suppose that one of the things that's certainly driven my journey down the flip lessons road is a straightforward addiction to chalk and talk. I find it very, very difficult to break that habit. This really is an attempt to get me out of that particular bad habit and instead look at a new way of delivery and a new way of preliminary explanation and indeed a new way of preliminary evaluation. All of this can be achieved through the flipped lesson. And if we do that, then the class becomes about facilitating the learning experience rather than simply trying to hammer that information into our students' heads. So who benefits from this particular exercise? And I said that this wasn't going to be about flip lessons generally, but this is worth persevering with. Who benefits? Well, I think everybody benefits. Certainly it allows the teacher to escape the center stage. We're talking about facilitating the learning experience rather than being the primary mechanism by which information is delivered. And that means that we can get out from in front of the whiteboard or get out from in front of the blackboard or whatever particular mechanism it is that we're using, and instead be in several places at the same time. If the students are watching these videos, then each of them is learning at their own pace and place, and that means that we can effectively multitask. One thing that I really find extremely useful is marking with our students at this point. I can be marking with a student at my desk, going through the work and discussing the bits that work, perhaps the bits that could work better, while everybody else is perhaps watching some of these flip lessons, and that means that we can just get through this marking ordeal in a much more, hopefully, constructive and indeed friendly way. It also means, of course, that you can recycle your best lessons. We've all had those absolute humdingers, and we wish, God, I wish somebody had been recording this. Well, that's basically what we're doing here. We're taking your very, very best material, we're caching it, and then we're allowing the students to access it at a time and indeed in an environment that best suits them. It also means that you can outsource some content, of which a little more later. But on this, I would say that the Americans are way ahead of us on this particular thing. And it's worth looking at some of the lessons and some of the material that's out there and co-opting that into your own teaching mechanism. I do think the pupils benefit tremendously as well, because it's a different type of engagement with the content. I'd love it if all of our students were very, very happy to plow into a textbook, but it strikes me that's becoming harder and harder to sell. This is a medium with which they are much more familiar, and we can pretend that we don't like it, or indeed we can actively not like it, but that's not going to change anything. Students are much more used to accessing the information that they need online immediately. And plowing through textbooks is something that they're going to have to do. I don't deny that for a second. But this is another way of engaging with the material. It doesn't replace the textbook, but it's there to augment the textbook and to highlight the particular areas that the student might choose to look at. Speed of delivery is utterly critical. If we're delivering material in class, basically there are three possible speeds at which that can be going. It can be going at just the right speed, or it can be going too fast, or it can be going too slow. And the chances are that in any particular classroom, you're going to find that all three of those speeds are being delivered. For some students, it's going to be too fast. For others, it's going to be too slow. For some, most likely for you, the teacher, at the delivery point, it's going to be just right. But with this particular mechanism, by creating these video entries, what we have is a system that a student can stop, pause, rewind, and look again at their own time and at their own pace. And so this allows for much more effective teaching delivery speed, or device, however you choose to describe that. It also allows them to rewind and review. So if there's something that's particularly good, or perhaps something that they need to think about, they can rewind, review, pause, go back, follow hot links, and then pick it up again at their own pace. And again, that's something that's a habit. It takes a little bit of time to get into that, and we need to help our students understand that this is how it works. But once that is embraced, once that mechanism and that theory is working, then this becomes an incredibly powerful teaching device. And of course, that goes without saying that come revision time, as long as you got it right the first time, this is going to be a tremendous revision aid. That said, it doesn't come free. It will take a bit of time for you to put that up. It will involve an awful lot of frustration, because you are going to have to deal with students who use YouTube or this entire video as moving wallpaper, and that means that you've got to go in and just make sure that they've been following the material. You may choose to do that through tests, through exam questions, however it wants, but there will be frustrations with it. There will be frustrations in terms of the construction, so at the front end, and indeed at the back end when you have to deal with user problems. Yeah, it's not cost-free. And perhaps the best example of that is the sound of your own voice. Now, it's often said that no one becomes a teacher if they don't enjoy the sound of their own voice, but there's an awful lot of difference between bone conduction and electronic and oral conduction. And what that means is that if this is terrible and tedious for you, imagine what it's like for me, having to listen to this again, played back at me over the speakers. My voice doesn't sound like that. I know it doesn't sound like that, but you, of course, may need some convincing otherwise. So, having said that I wasn't going to talk about flipped lessons generally, I just have, and this is how to do it. You need four things, really. You need your source material, and that can be anything. It could be PowerPoint, it could be Prezi, it could be Storify, it could be a video. It could just be you standing in a classroom recording a lesson. It doesn't really matter, but you need your source material. You then need a way of storing it. You need a way of recording it. Now, I use Screencast-O-Matic, and I do that for two reasons. A, it's free, and B, it's got a 15-minute cutoff. Now, you can buy a a more expensive version of Screencast-O-Matic that doesn't have the 15-minute cutoff, but I do find that 15 minutes is a good discipline for me, because if I don't have the 15-minute cutoff, I tend to rant on indefinitely, and indeed ask any of my students and they'll tell you that a 15-minute cutoff is an absolute blessing. You then need a platform. YouTube is the obvious one, and it's a good idea to have an account there. And of course, you'll have your own school's VLE. The reason for that is because we first, if we're using Screencast-O-Matic, it first goes onto YouTube, and then having established that YouTube platform, we can then post it onto the VLE. That perhaps sounds a little bit complicated, but in the next slide, I'm going to show you exactly how that works, and hopefully that will make things a bit clearer. Now, hard copy. This, I think, is absolutely fundamental to the success of the exercise. The students need to have a way of logging their way through a particular presentation, through a particular video, and there will be questions that they can't answer themselves. There will be queries that they want to raise. There will be things that they want to flag up when we get back into class. That's, of course, assuming they bought into it properly. And having a hard copy enables them to do that. So they have a hard copy of the presentation. They watch that presentation they watch the presentation with the hard copy to hand, and they use the hard copy as a way of making notes and queries that we can then address in class. So step-by-step instructions. Well, get your material ready, whatever that is. Open up the Screencast-O-Matic, and that looks like this. We then go on and we hit record, and that takes us to this stage. As it says there, anything that happens in that frame will be recorded. You then hit record, and it brings you to this, and then suddenly everything's go. You've got 3 seconds to get your stuff together, and it starts recording. When you're done, you just hit that pause button there. That takes you to this particular screen, and if you're happy with what you've done, then you press done, and that publishes it to YouTube via this particular device. You come in here, you hit upload to YouTube, and it uploads it to YouTube. Now, if you're not happy, then you simply hit the bin and you start again. And that's it. That really is it. You then have to go to your YouTube page, and here's the one that I've just recorded, and you copy that link, which is here, and you then post that to your page on the VLE. And that really is it. That's about as complicated as it gets. You're then in a position to unleash your genius on an unsuspecting world, and indeed to do so again and again and again. You'll wind up, with any luck, with something that looks a little bit like this. Now, this is just one page from our VLE, and this is my particular presentations on Congress. And the reason I've chosen this is we've got a mixture of my own stuff, which is this material here, and some of that outsourced content that I mentioned earlier. So you can start mixing the content and picking videos from different places and uploading it, and and there's my pal there, Mr. Hughes, and then hopefully you'll have a variety of different styles, a variety of different approaches, which will allow students to come at material from different areas and hopefully keep it relatively fresh and engaged. And that is the end of this particular video presentation. I suppose I should really hang around and answer some questions. Hopefully there will be some. One of the caveats I should have mentioned earlier was background noise, and if there's been a bit of banging in the background, that's my family who are sitting watching Avatar. Yeah, so you can't legislate for that. Anyway, how do I do for time? That is 14 minutes on the button. I look forward to your questions, and thanks for the attention. Speak to you very, very shortly.